Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we are live from Detroit Lions versus New York Giants joint practices. We got Dan Duggan in the van later, which we'll talk about. We'll do our 5 guys to watch for in the preseason, but we'll start with talking about the actual practices, which was really cool. Like, joint practices are always something I've wanted to observe. You're seeing like real competition in a lot of different situations versus other teams. I really enjoyed seeing it out there. The Giants, I was on offensive duty. You were on defense.
Yep.
Giants offense looked really sloppy, starting with Daniel Jones day 1. Day 2, it looked a lot better. But it was cool to be out here, Justin.
Yeah, tale of 2 days, especially it feels like for the Giants offense, and maybe you can even say the Giants defense too. I was at Giants-Pats in 2021, so this is my second joint practice, covering my second joint practice in my career. That feels weird to say, but this was cool because I feel like the vibe that the Giants give in their practices is very different from what Dan Campbell gives in their practices versus it was Joe Judge, who was a Bill Belichick disciple, going to Bill Belichick back in 2021. So the vibes were kind of similar there, since the practices were so ran similarly, where like clearly Dan Campbell brings a little bit more energy, and his staff of all former players bring a little bit more energy to their practices compared to Brian Daboll, who was, we hear multiple times on the show with people that we bring on, they run kind of like a country club. But it was cool to see these two teams come together. Definitely a better day 2 for the Giants versus the day 1.
So they competed like hard, and because of that, I don't expect the Giants starters to start play in the first preseason game.
And Dan Campbell's like saying the same thing all week, where Brian Daboll, like, it's so funny. Brian Daboll is still like, yeah, we're gonna talk as a staff like tonight and really come together with the decision. Like, no, like you're telling me you haven't had this decision for 2 months. But Dan Campbell's been pretty open, saying that, yeah, we're gonna play our starters. And the first team throughout these last 2 days of practice did get a lot of run. And Dan Campbell's kind of been open and candid, saying that this is basically like kind of serving as like a preseason game, an opener for them. And now once Friday comes, the starters are basically going to sit.
So I want to talk. We won't be at other practices, so I want to talk about Daniel Jones because we won't get to talk to him about him until the second preseason game. But first, why don't we? Who brought us here?
Who brought us here? Who brought us here to Detroit is Manscaped. They're sponsoring our PPPs. They're sponsoring the camp streams. They said, we want you guys to go out to Detroit to cover these joint practices, so we're going to sponsor everything that you're doing, and that's awesome. And they will bring you the Platinum Package 4.0. I like to think that we're a pretty platinum package at Talking Giants. Bobby Skinner and I giving these training camp reports. Well, Manscaped, they're even better because they have so many products like the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear, nose and hair trimmer, Ultra Premium Body Wash, 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner plus deodorant. Plus, I got something in the mail recently, and I'm going to find the picture because I took a picture of it right before I left. The Handyman Compact Face Shaver. How do you like that? So I'm excited for Manscaped to even further take care of all of men's health and my needs. I want you to get 20% off and free shipping with the code GIANTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use promo code Giants. Use the Platinum Package because the gold standard, it's no longer good enough. Thank you to Manscaped for everything that you do for us.
In high school, we had to shave, and we had this one guy who was like, he made himself like be the meanest guy, like a staff member. So but he wasn't, because anytime you get in trouble,
yeah,
like we like got in trouble like doing something really dumb, and he's like, go behind the to the office.
Sure.
And he's just like, go to BX, buy a razor, shave your face. So he said, go to the BX, buy a Manscaped, shave your face. All right, let's talk about Daniel Jones. You'll be glad you did. Day 1, went 7 of 15, and it was just sloppy. And it wasn't a day where Daniel Jones was making bad decisions. He just was missing guys flat out. Like, he missed Waller twice on deep passes. Slayton, he threw a ball behind him on a slant. He just was really off, and it led to the first bad day for the Giants offensive all training camp. And it was like, I don't want to see that when they're playing the Detroit line, like playing a different team. Like, we were at the end of Giants practices in MetLife or Quest Diagnostics. We were hoping for a bad day because we wanted to see the defense make some plays. But the first bad day happens against the Lions, so that was kind of a bummer. Day 2 looked a lot better. 11 of 16, completing 70, that's 70% of the passes. Looked really good in the red zone and also had some other stuff, moving from the 50-yard line. He had touchdowns to Waller. Darius Slayton, who I want to talk about, man, has had a really good camp. He had a touchdown on about like a 25-yard crossing route where DJ looks off a safety and fires it into Slayton. And then the next play, they're simulating a 2-point conversion. And you can go see the clip on the Giants' social media. I mean, DJ fires that ball in there. It's a beautiful, perfect throw. Slayton makes a tough grab, gets the hip and bounce touchdown, and he just looked a lot better. Now, that being said, we also saw in day 2 Daniel Jones' worst decision of any training camp practice, which was a dropped interception on a stick route from Jalen Hyatt. He also underthrew a Darius Slayton ball, which we had seen before in other practices against Deonte Banks, but Slayton was still able to make the play versus the Lions. Cam Sutton broke it up for them. But was good to see day 2 they really came back and came firing. And Darren Waller and Daniel Jones supposedly had talked to the team before practice after that day 1, and we're like, hey, let's come out here with more energy and play up to the Lions level and play better. Isaiah Hodgins told reporters that, and they definitely did on day 2.
Yeah, that really surprised me. I don't really know Darren Waller. Darren Waller seems very, very well spoken, and the fact that he's a veteran, he's one of the, I would say, besides Cole Beasley, probably one of the older guys on the offense, not counting Sterling Shepard. But still, Darren Waller, I think, is he's being looked at as the lead catalyst, and in this quote unquote receiving tight end room that the Giants have, the pass catchers room, so to speak. So, but even Daniel Jones. And I think, I hate to, you always do the natural comparison to Daniel Jones to Eli Manning, but whenever Eli did it, you kind of never expected it. But, hey, Daniel Jones got that second contract. Daniel Jones wears the C on his shirt. I kind of like hearing that. If he felt like he had something to say after that first day, and so he said it. Yeah,
and the Lions, they're not great on the interior rush, but they do have, some – they signed Cam Sutton, Brian Branch has been awesome. Chauncey Gardner has been, we know he's a good player. In Brian Branch, who was, I didn't see a ton of him, but we were talking with Lions people, and they're like, man, he's the best player on the defense right now.
And I loved him.
From day 1. He's actually he probably won't play in the preseason.
Probably won't play.
But he's someone I just want to watch his rookie season play out.
Yeah, for sure. But you mentioned the O-line.
Yeah, the offensive line.
I think from this week, everybody's been talking about Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones recovered well on day 2, but Daniel Jones had a bad day 1. I think the main takeaway from this week is finally seeing, particularly the interior. Evan Neal's obviously still in concussion protocol, so we got to see Matt Parrott, Andrew Thomas. I'm sure he took care of his business, but particularly the interior offensive line, kind of led by John Michael Schmitz, really taking care of their business both days. And that's one of my main takeaways from the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and again, the interior of the Lions rush is not very good, but John Michael Smith did look really good, and he was going from playing against the Giants, where they have one of the best rush duos, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams in the NFL, where DJ wasn't getting pressured a ton at the Giants camps, but he was getting pressured, although he was still delivering and making throws. Out here in Detroit, he had clean pockets. The throw that was underthrown to Slayton, he had legitimately 4 or 5 seconds to throw that ball.
Yeah.
And there was nobody. It was a great protection up front. And even on the Slayton, 2-pointer, hey, he had protection. He stepped up and fired in a bullet. Obviously they're not actually turning in the sacks, but the only real bad protection on day 2 was an Aiden Hutchinson coming in on a stunt, which is, you got to pick those up, but in practice, what I look for more is just guys losing their matchups, and that just didn't happen. So obviously we got to see them. We have to see them at a middle ground, versus interior rush. And hey, in the NFC East, you're going to be playing great interior rush, with the Commanders, with Payne and Allen. The Cowboys added some guys, and then the Eagles obviously still have their interior rush and their guys on the edges too. But it was really nice to just see us go up and compete against another team, and our offensive line wasn't overwhelmed, which has happened in previous joint practices. You're coming out of it, and it's man, just constant pressure. Yep. So I don't care how bad it is. It was a hell of a lot better to see that than coming here and they were dealing with a lot of pressure. So I'm glad that the one bad day was simply Daniel Jones just missing guys.
Because we haven't seen a lot of that in his – we've seen Daniel Jones make bad decisions. I don't really remember ever having a game where I was like, damn, Daniel Jones just missed guys left and right at any point throughout his career.
He's an extremely accurate quarterback, so if there's an off day that's due to accuracy, I can live with that because after 4 years of watching him, we know he's a pretty damn accurate quarterback. And you watch other quarterbacks, and this is a syndrome of watching one team, and it's like you analyze every great thing and bad thing as to the polar opposites. But when you do watch other quarterbacks play around the league, like even some of the best ones, they just have these misses that Daniel Jones has not had. So I'm glad that's what was what the day one issues were.
Yeah.
It wasn't from interior pressure. Yeah. It wasn't from bad decisions from Daniel Jones. It was simply him just missing.
But question for you. A theme of this summer so far has been Daniel Jones has been attempting, let me see if you can catch this throws, where it's to Darren Waller. We've seen this to Paris Campbell a little bit, sometimes to Darius Slayton. But Darius Slayton has been known to, for those one-on-one kind of, pseudo-contested catch opportunities where guys are kind of blanketed on you because Darius Slayton's just targeted down the field a decent amount. Do you feel like some of the throws that Daniel Jones maybe missed on day one were attributed to some, like, hey, I'm just going to maybe see if you can make this play, or not really throws that he's made in the past, like thinking of like maybe a larger average depth to target down the field, stuff like that?
No, I actually thought he did that more on day two. Like one of his incompletions on day two was Slayton coming across the back of the end zone, and I think maybe Jones in a game doesn't throw that, but fired it in, and then the social media clip that we saw. Yep. Day one, it was just flat out missing guys.
Okay.
The Waller ones, Waller beat his guy twice, and he just one time was slightly underthrown. It wasn't the worst ball in the world, but did slightly underthrow it. And then the second one, Waller totally cooked the linebacker, and he just missed him far and outside. So now there was a Darius Slayton drop on day one where it was a really tight throw where Slayton had the jump, but he dropped it. But he also had a ball behind Slayton. But I do want to talk about Darius Slayton because now that we are done at practices, we've been to 11. I've charted all the catches and throws and whatever. Waller has 22
catches. Yeah.
Next on the list is Darius Slayton with 18, and then Paris Campbell is 16. Paris Campbell has a lot of design touches that are behind the line of scrimmage. So it's not like they're just battling for who's winning the most down the field. Saquon has 16. We know as the running back position, those are mostly checkdowns, and then Hodgins 11. Slayton, I am expecting big things out of Darius Slayton this year.
Yeah.
His speed obviously is always going to flash, but I think he's been separating at a better level, been better at the release. We're not seeing the drops that we've seen in past camps and obviously games too. And I think he's grown as a route runner to separate, because it's not like he's just getting speed plays on crossers and getting, stacking a corner and getting deep. He's getting he's just beating Adoree Jackson consistently in Giants camp. Out of all the receivers here in Detroit, he's been the one that's been most open and obviously the most targeted too. So I am at a point now coming away from this, and I know we've asked every beat reporter about which it's been my favorite question of the offseason. And my answer has always been Darius Slayton. Now I'm just it better be Darius Slayton. Yep. If you don't think Darius Slayton, I think you're wrong. And I don't think that's just in yards because he creates big plays. I think it's going to be more catches than Paris Campbell.
Really?
Because they're going to rotate to some of the slot guys. I think it's going to be more than Hodgins. I think if Hyatt's on the field, I think Hodgins' reps are going to suffer compared to Darius Slayton's in that. Darius Slayton to me has been the consistent guy there for 4 years. Had his best season last season as far as efficiency and stuff besides touchdowns. And I think year two in this system, with confidence built back up, and this coaching staff from day one having a big role for him, not being forced into having a role for him, I am excited for Darius Slayton on this New York Giants team. And I think Darren Waller being there and, having the pressure, having what
him
he
not
brings
being the
to
number
field.
one target.
Yeah, even though he's the number one wide receiver, he's not the number one target in the receiving game. So I am at a point now that we are leaving practices. I'm not going to see Darius Slayton play besides preseason games until this week 1 versus Dallas, and I am confident in him.
Yep. And
if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I truly believe that we're going to come away from this year and be happy with Darius Slayton, unless the freaking drops pop up and are bad. That is the biggest. But even with those drops, I'm super confident he's going to be the Giants' leading receiver as far as wide receivers, not over Darren Waller, and be just as important as he was last year. Just as important as he was last year on a team that had no wide receiver.
Well, hopefully
talent.
a little bit more because, Darius Slayton was really important last year, but hopefully there's more of an impact because we want more big plays. That's what we want more out of this offense. Darius Slayton had 13 or 14 20-plus yard catches last year, and no other Giants receiver had more than 3, which is kind of bananas. Daniel Jones had 27 passing plays of 20-plus yards, and Darius Slayton had it was 13 because it was almost half of Daniel Jones' 20-plus yard passing plays. But this is exactly what we've been asking for management and GMs or whoever who's helping shape and form this team to do with Darius Slayton, because every year we enter a year saying, oh, Darius Slayton shouldn't be or is not going to be the team's leading receiver, and it's going to be somebody else. It's going to be Galladay. It's going to be Tony. And then every year it's been, nope, it is Darius Slayton. And what I feel like the Giants have done finally a good job with is Darren Waller is going to be a threat that that opponents have to take care of. Jalen Hyatt, when they are in that, I'm calling it my NASCAR package, where it's Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell in the slot, NASCAR, there you go, and Darren Waller out on the field for 11 personnel. That is my NASCAR speed package. Go, 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 go. And you have to worry about Paris Campbell's speed. You have to worry about Jalen Hyatt's speed. Darius Slayton used to be the only weapon in the passing game that teams would have to worry about. And he was still productive despite teams respecting the speed of Darius Slayton. Now it will hopefully open some more things up for him. You mentioned the drops. It's been really cool to see how he's attacked the ball in the air this camp. That's been a thing that some of his his wide receiver coach has talked about, and that clip's been circulating around social media. You saw it in the clip during that 2-point conversion where he's running towards the back corner of the end zone, snags that ball out in the air, doesn't let the ball kind of come into his chest. So good stuff from Darius Slayton this summer. Let's see it translate in the fall.
Last thing on offense before I let you talk from the defensive stuff, just quick. We're talking wide receivers. I think Hodgins' stock went up a little bit. I mean, he had 11 catches through 11 practices. 5 of them came versus the Detroit Lions in team drills. Only talking about 11 on 11 here, and he did some good things. Campbell, the things that we talked about when we did our player profile on him, when we did our free agency edition podcast, you're seeing some of that come up because he's not playing against Darnay Holmes consistently, and like when he just doesn't separate great versus man coverage in the quick game. If you get him down the field, that's where he can show off his speed and work leverage and stuff. But he still has some work to go as a separator versus man coverage in the quick game, which Hodgins does really well. And you saw Hodgins do well in that these 2 days. And Campbell, even when Campbell made catches, they were mostly tight besides like one pick route that he had. Still was productive, but it was like, okay, it does look a little different with Campbell when he's not facing Darnay Holmes.
Yeah, with Hodgins, I've come away from these joint practices saying that Hodgins, I think, is going to be a much more productive, and I think he is just a better kind of like in-game wide receiver versus like practice wide receiver, because we've seen some of the plays and some of the areas in which Hodgins has been exposed the past couple weeks where, he's a little slow, he doesn't get a lot of separation, but I think if you put him in that in-game atmosphere, he can kind of shine a little bit more, and that's what we saw last year, basically.
Why don't we talk about something before we talk about the defense?
Oh, sure. Oh, wow. We're banging out another ad. And we got to talk about Nutrafol. New sponsor, Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. No more. Nutrafol provides a whole-body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair, no drugs, no compromises, just better hair. I got to talk about, I'm getting a little bit conscious of my hair.
Aziz is out.
Aziz is out.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, stop. Aziz is out where? Is he out in Detroit partying?
I haven't gotten you in a long time, but I did the point at my computer, so I was like, look, I'm definitely not tricking you, and I tricked you.
Oh, you tricked me. You think I'm less gullible than you? Like you could have just said Aziz is out, and I would have been like, what? The point the computer trick did get me. Nutrafol. I've been thinking about like my hair and the condition of my hair recently. I've seen some things from my hair that I'm not excited about, so I'm thinking about trying Nutrafol Scalp Care. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health.
Nice.
Wow, I love that. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting root causes of thinning, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. I'm partially blaming the Giants and the stress of just covering a team that was losing for so long as to why my hair's kind of going to shit sometimes. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code TALKGIANTS. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code TALKGIANTS. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code TALKGIANTS. Bobby Skinner, you'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. What did you notice focusing in on the defense?
Yeah, so a little bit similar to the offense of a tale of 2 days for the defense. But I would say day one, the defense maybe had some better overall, like, flashier moments and good moments in day one compared to the offense. I will say, day two, defense forced 3 turnovers. We are ending our Giants camp coverage through 11 days, and the Giants' first-team defense does not have a single interception.
Last year we went until the Lamar Jackson versus Julian Love interception.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have a year with not very many interceptions again.
And I've been of the very
Just
strong
a lot
belief.
more pressure on the offense.
I've been of the very strong belief that, the interceptions are going to come because it's kind of just like inevitable that you're not going to be that bad again. But, man, I still do believe it. But even after just sitting through this camp, I'm starting to doubt that take that I very strongly believed. I do think like there's going to be hopefully just some more lucky bounces, passes deflected at the line, which I do think that this defense does, between like all the safeties and the corners and the pass. I know Dex can get his hands up there and the edge rushers can get their hands up there. So I think that there are going to be more interceptions, but man, it's going to be pretty tough to come by. And the Giants are going to have to rely on a little bit of luck to get those interceptions. But so yeah, day two, the defense did force 3 turnovers, and it was 3 forced fumbles. It was Dane Belton. In certain packages, by the way, Dane Belton was out there with the first-team defense, not as a starter per se, but there were some packages where Wink Martindale would put 4 safeties on the field, 2 corners, and 4 to 3 safeties, 2 to 3 corners, and then you would have three down linemen where you would have Dex and then your 2 edge rushers and then 1 linebacker. So it would be like Bobby McCain and Dane Belton were the additional 2 safeties next to Pinnock and McKinney. So Dane Belton, one of the plays was an awesome screen that the Lions ran. David Montgomery caught the ball. Dane Belton was blitzing up the A-gap. He might have gotten a sack on a particular play, but reads the screen well, and then just reaches across David Montgomery's body, takes it clean, and then puts it in his hand right away, carries it, and it would have been a touchdown. And then Jordan Riley, Kayvon Thibodeau forced another fumble. Kayvon Thibodeau had 2 fumble recoveries during Thursday's practice.
The Dane Belton one was maybe the coolest forced fumble I've ever seen.
It was so clean.
And I even had someone quote tweeted with the Jamal Adams versus Daniel Jones, and I was like, fair. But now I'm thinking about it, I was like, no, it's not. Daniel Jones is the quarterback with the ball right here. Yeah. You had a running back running forward, and he just ripped it out of his hands.
Yeah, just like
and walked the other way. So I'm actually, even though it's not a game, obviously, but that was like I watched that 20 times. I can't believe he pulled that off.
Dane Belton must have huge hands too.
David Montgomery
just to fit the ball
right now at 5'20", probably having the worst day of his life, the way he's getting teared into him for having that.
How did that happen? So what we did see, though, we saw a lot of linebacker play because the Lions were running the ball a lot through day 1 and day 2. Day 1 and day 2, anytime that they ran it up the middle, it didn't go anywhere. I mean, this is where Dexter Lawrence comes in. This is when Leonard Williams comes in. And those guys did a good job of stopping the runs that were coming up the middle. Day 1, anytime the Lions tried to go outside the tackles, they had some success. And, you attribute that to linebacker play, which we know is, a little bit suspect outside of maybe Bobby Okereke. Micah McFadden did get both days starting with the first team. I actually thought Micah McFadden the first day looked pretty good. He was tested a lot in coverage. He was tested a lot and he made some run stops day 1. Day 2, he was a little bit more quieter, but Micah McFadden has taken that interior linebacker 2 job, and he's kind of ran with it a little bit, it seems like, this week. But the runs that were going outside the tackles, you think of linebacker play, then you also think of your edge rushers setting the edge, right? Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau, which inevitably we kind of have that question leading into the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the run defense. It's so hard to tell in practice, but they did have some really good moments.
The second day was a lot better. the second day where they were running outside the tackles. It was the Jordan Riley, Kayvon Thibodeau forced fumble was on a run that was going outside the tackles. Jordan Riley was like a guy that stuck out. I'll talk a little bit more about him later when we're talking about things that we're looking forward to the preseason. But definitely, I just killed a fly. Wow. It's because I wasn't focused on it. It didn't think I was going to do it. Run defense was much better day 2, but I will say the reason why I think the defense overall was better day 2 is because they weren't running the crossing patterns. They weren't running the play action with crossing patterns. That you were talking about tight ends just being open in the flats a lot.
Yeah.
Day 1, they weren't doing that day 2. So I think that's partially the reason why the Giants defense did have a lot of success day 2 is because the Lions weren't doing the things that made them successful day 1.
All right. Anything else before we kick it to Dan Duggan?
No. Our camp live streams definitely have a lot more little nuggets about the specific. I feel like I'm leaving out so much of certain players.
I mean, this is
But so go check out those camp live streams. Appreciate everybody. I know we'll do this at the end too, but appreciate everybody sticking with us through everything that we're doing through camp.
All right. Why don't you talk to us about something before we get into Dan Duggan?
I don't need to talk to you about something. We'll do it after Dan Duggan.
All right. And here's Dan Duggan of The Athletic. All right. We now welcome on to the van from the Detroit Lions practice facility, Dan Duggan of The Athletic. What'd you think of a couple of days of Giants going against a different team?
I think the first day was not very good, and I think today was a lot better. I think that's usually how these go a lot of times. Usually one team comes out, and whether the Lions were more fired up, the Giants just looked like disjointed. And full disclosure, I only watch the offense because there's two fields going at the same time.
Yeah.
I take a peek at the defense down, but my colleague Charlotte Carroll, she was there watching that, so I left that in her hands. I just watched the offense yesterday, and I thought, maybe I'll watch the defense today. But the offense was so bad yesterday, I was like, I need to watch it just to see, I have a point of reference to see if it got better. It certainly did. I don't think it still probably wasn't as good as it looked most, East Rutherford practices. But definitely better, especially in the red zone. They were clicking there at the end of practice. But yeah, joint practices they're just good. Everyone likes them. The teams like them, the players like them, the coaches like them, we like them because it does just get monotonous. And this would be the week where it starts to feel like that dog days feeling like another practice at Quest, and it just kind of loses some of the juice. And you come out here and it's a different environment, and you get to see different players, and all of that stuff that the coaches talk about. It's true. It's and for us, it's not just for them. It's fun for us too.
Do you think the practice intensity of the Lions kind of threw the Giants off for a loop? Because we kind of saw it with the Hard Knocks last summer. It's a very player-driven, ex-player-driven coaching staff, and we know that Daboll's intense on the field, but I would say overall the practices are pretty lax that the Giants have, so it was quite a different dichotomy there. Do you think at least the first day that maybe threw the Giants off a little bit?
I think it could have. They had to travel too. They practiced Monday, travel here. So there's a lot of factors, and you're not coming for a game, so it's funny. The players were walking by us to go out to the practice field, and usually you'll see guys in the hallway of the facility, and they'll say what's up. And I noticed yesterday, even the Giants players, a lot of them would just kind of walk by me, they had their game face on. You kind of forget that these guys are going to go just battle for 2 hours with 300-pound men with bad intentions. At the same time, it didn't feel like they were at the Lions level of intensity because from the jump, they were chirping, they were celebrating, they were, gesturing after they break up a pass. And, any team that has C.J. Gardner-Johnson is obviously going to have
nuts, dude.
He's one of those guys, you love him if you're on a team and you hate him if you play against him. And then, particularly at the end of practice on Tuesday, when there's that red zone period, it felt like every Giants play ended up on the Lions sideline and it was unsuccessful. So that they just kept getting louder and louder and getting into it, the Giants. And so it just felt like, they had more juice, they had more energy. And there was no fights. There was not really anything particularly close. But it did feel like the Giants kind of matched just sort of the edginess that the Lions came out with in today's practice.
O'Shane Ximines got his ass kicked on a run play, and there was almost a fight.
I looked over and saw the patented, both guys grab each other's face mask. My money, I would have put any amount of money on Cam Brown starting a fight because he was out there at that time when things were getting chippier and chippier, and he's always the first one ready to get involved.
Well, he got dragged last time.
No, he dragged
Feliciano.
Yeah, no, so I was shocked that it didn't escalate, but hey, I guess that it's a good sign. They listened to the coaches and didn't take it over the line.
So we've seen 9 practices versus the Giants. The Giants versus the Giants, and then 2 days out here. And even on that first day, it didn't look like the offense wasn't – they weren't throwing – it didn't look like last year's training camp practices where they were just bad decisions, balls hitting the ground because of indecision. It was just DJ was missing. After seeing with Darren Waller, Paris Campbell being in the mix, What are your reasonable expectations for this offense, and has camp changed them at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think you can go back to the spring, just seeing Darren Waller on a football field. Like we've all known he's a good player, and we've all seen the stats and seen the highlights. But like it is like an X factor, game changer, whatever type of term like that you want to use. Because I think if they didn't have him, and you add Paris Campbell, you add Jalen Hyatt, like I don't think this offensive ceiling would go up significantly. Maybe those guys are a little better than the players who were in their spots last year. He's the key piece. Like if there's one guy they can't afford to lose, I would say offensively, aside from DJ and maybe Andrew Thomas, but in terms of skill players, it's Darren Waller. To me, I think because again, I think you can mitigate other guys. There's no one else who can replicate what he does. So now, what does that translate to? I mean, they obviously weren't a really high scoring offense last year. I don't think they're suddenly going to end up scoring 30 points a game. But I think that they'll have a lot more dynamic elements. I think there'll be games where they do score a lot. Like I don't think they're going to have to play four corners offense like they did in games last year where they're just trying to not turn the ball over and survive and win 20-13. I think there will be some games where they can open it up, and I think he's the key factor. Hyatt is going to be the big play guy. And yeah, Campbell, I think is just he's kind of like an upgraded version of Richie James. Can do a lot more, but kind of that guy. He's the slot guy, and they move him around a lot.
If there was any player that I thought maybe had compared to versus the Giants players that didn't do the same was Paris Campbell, because he was winning pretty easily versus Darnay Holmes and Cordell Flott, where here is okay, he got some catches, but they were always pretty close and contested versus some of the Lions man coverage. But Slayton, this has been my question for everybody, is which wide receiver do you think is going to lead the Giants in receiving? It seems like Slayton is after coming off of probably his best season just efficiency-wise, is primed to be the Giants' leading receiver outside of Waller again.
Yeah, so you're asking leading wide receiver?
Yeah, leading
I think
wide
Waller's
receiver
probably going to lead. In yards, I definitely think him. Maybe Campbell in receptions, because he's going to have a lot of shorter. You even see it out here. It's swing passes and almost screens sometimes. So that's going to boost up the reception totals. But no, I definitely think Slayton, because he's the downfield threat, and it's not just deep. I mean, you do see a lot of him with those 15-yard dig routes or deep out. So I think he'll be that guy. And obviously he and DJ have a great rapport, and that's continued here this summer, whether it be these 2 days and certainly back in Jersey.
Which guy did you think stood out the most for the Giants in just these two practices versus the Lions?
Ooh, that is a good question, because I'm trying to think. We just got off the field here. Slayton had a nice touchdown catch today. Two, actually, right? He had back-to-back.
Yeah, they had the touchdown, and I think they just simulated a two-point conversion.
Okay,
and that was even a more impressive play than the touchdown.
So, yeah, off the top of my head, he's the one that jumps out, because, again, I didn't watch the defense. I did see the highlight of Dane Belton just, ripping the ball away from the Lions.
He had two forced fumbles.
That's the best forced fumble I've ever seen in my life.
It was insane. So
First team defense forced 3 fumbles, and it was kind of crazy. How about I know it's the offensive line, it's tough to stand out, but John Michael Schmitz.
I think what stands out, because I'm not going to
tough.
I'm not going to pretend I can break down how he did.
Right.
What I will break down is he took every single first team center snap, and that's what matters, and that's what's important, because they're obviously breaking it down a lot better than you or I could anyways, and they're giving him all those reps. I mean, I think, this isn't like a starting quarterback where they're going to announce the starting center, but it was caught your attention, obviously, last week when Bredesen came back in. It felt like that position was done. Then they gave Bredesen the reps. You come here and give Schmitz all of these reps in this setting, which every coach says is so important and so valuable, and you're evaluating them at such a higher level. So the fact that he got all those reps, and it wasn't like it was a disaster, there wasn't free runners, and obviously he wasn't getting blown into Jones's lap over and over. So I think that competition is probably nearing its end. And the guards positions is totally unsettled.
I want to ask about that, and it was. So the O-line went from maybe the strongest interior group to one of the weaker groups in the Lions, and I thought they actually held up well besides some Parrott versus Hutchinson matchups. I know Hutchinson got in today on a stunt, but stunts, I don't really care about them in practice too much. But the thing that is every time you think you've got a good grasp on it, who the hell is starting at guard? Because even now it's I had Mark Lewinsky, even though I didn't want to, and I asked you guys to rip into them if they didn't, but they're actually giving Bredesen snaps at right guard still. And, that's got to eat alive at Glowinski, taking second-team reps. It's not like a Trey Hawkins or Dory Jackson situation. Now that we're done at practices, do you have any grasp on what 5 they're going to roll out there for the first game?
Obviously the tackles are locked in, and I think the center is locked in. And I think it's obviously 3 guys for 2 spots. But I always thought it was basically Bredesen and Zuda for left guard. And because even Shane, I once he was at the Combine, when I asked him a question about the O-line, and he referenced Glowinski as like a locked-in type guy.
He did.
And in the spring, you saw nothing, and for the first like 5 practices, you saw nothing. And then all of a sudden, it was like Bredesen got a day. And like I said, it wasn't a rest day, because if you're going to rest day, he wouldn't then go run with the 2s. And the fact that when he's not with the 1s, he's with the 2s tells you it's more like depth chart. It's not rest. It's not like a door you just gets a day off when Hawkins gets those reps. So, yeah, today it was funny. They would be Bredesen at left guard, Glowinski at right guard, and then they'd switch within a drive. So you really have to like keep you on your toes with that. So to me, it feels wide open. Like it's truly 3 guys for 2 spots. I didn't think that'd be the case. I think that's the way it should have been. And I just think a lot of times in this league with finances and cap hits and pride and ego, you don't want to swallow and say, hey, we might have made a bad investment here. But I mean, listen, it's not a crippling investment, and he didn't play well last year, so I think he should have to battle for his job regardless.
What if they rotate?
They're going to rotate. It's going to be so annoying.
They're going to rotate. They're going to rotate at both left and right guard.
No,
imagine.
I don't think that's
because that's what it's like. The frustrating, it makes me frustrated. Dan, not like who's the starter. Like obviously, Daboll's not going to tell you who the starter is, and it could still be like up in the air right now. But what's frustrating is just not having clarity on, like, you'll have John Michael Schmitz at center for 4 days, and then Ben Bredesen's at center. And even, like, if you'll ask Daboll, like, what's the thought process here? He won't give you a real answer. So that's, like, the frustrating thing is just as a fan observing camp and coming to all these practices is just not knowing the why behind why are we changing the interior 3 so much throughout camp so far. That's a frustrating thing.
With all the rotating they've done in camp, that was sort of the conclusion I was coming to. Like, they're just going to have a rotation again because they did it last year with Gates and Bredesen, with Zudu and Bredesen. But now, I don't think you can do like a 3-man rotation. But maybe they're going to rotate.
That's like what it looks like.
I know, and maybe they'll rotate right guard and have Zudu be the left guard, and it feels like Bredesen is going to be like the guy who gets screwed here because he's probably the best of the 3.
Correct.
And he's going to have to play 50% of the snaps.
That is exactly why they're doing a rotation. It's because they want Glowinski at right guard. They gave him the biggest contract that first season, and then Zudu is the guy they drafted in the 3rd round. John Michael Schmitz but Bredesen is the one that's outperforming all of them. So it's like, how can you look that guy in the face and say, nope, you are not on the field with these guys?
It's gonna be fast. I definitely would be surprised if week 1 there isn't some rotation at one of the guard spots.
Which will be funny to see the fan base kind of rip Joe Judge to shit for rotating, and then with Daboll like, oh, well, it's good. Jelson, I know you had some you didn't get too much look at the defensive guys, but Jelson, I know you want to talk about sports science.
I do. I want to talk about sports science because our guy Research Rick, he's NYG fan in Charlotte.
Yeah.
He came up with the hashtag Summer of Sports Science, and I think I know you're into this stuff. You're into the the nitty gritty and all the behind the scenes stuff too that a lot of people aren't that a lot of people don't talk about. I think that has been the biggest X factor. And it's made one of the more quieter big impacts this camp. But the fact that I'm knocking on wood, there's not a lot of major injuries, and guys are practicing, and they're all just kind of out there. And even if you'll have Aziz take a day or whatever, even Jihad Ward took some days, maybe he was working through something. But talk to me about, I don't know if it's stuff that you heard, stuff that you're observing, the integration of the summer of sports science and even like the new playing surface and things like that.
Okay, yeah. So new playing surface, it's on the indoor facility. So they've only had the one practice.
I thought it was the outdoor too.
No, I think that's just the regular grass. So they haven't done that.
Then I lied to people.
I'm glad I can set the record straight. No, so they only had one super light practice there. Daboll said, players said it felt softer. I mean, again, I couldn't possibly tell you if it feels any different to me.
Run about 200 yards and let me know.
The proof is going to be in the pudding, obviously, with injuries and stuff like that when they get in games. Because obviously MetLife got replaced as well. But just the more general sports science stuff, yeah. I mean, like Daboll clearly adheres to it, and Daboll's funny. Like he has every coach has this, but he's very beholden to competitive advantage stuff. He doesn't give anything about what that means beyond just uses the sports science staff, and he never really gives any insight on why they do things like Jihad Ward. He'd be saying he's resting, but then be like, well, he's got a little something that's not anything.
He missed 8 days in a row.
There's no way he wasn't dealing with some sort of injury. Or Leonard Williams missed a couple of days and he comes back out with his arm wrapped to the hilt, and he even had a comment where he said, well, it depends what we're resting on, guys. So basically, it's if they have an injury, we rest that body part. It's so it's very much semantics. But no, still, I'm kind of being just picking on surface level stuff. Bigger picture, they very much adhere to that. The GPS stuff, you see guys who Saquon did very little today. I'm sure that was because his readings yesterday and his injury history, they factor all it in. I'm actually surprised that Waller has done so much. He's had a few days where they've scaled him back, and maybe sometimes within practice, if a guy's out there at the beginning, you kind of lose track. If maybe they did scale him back and you just weren't paying that close attention. You kind of noticed with him, but he's been out there a lot, and he said yesterday he feels great. But no, that's definitely a big kind of initiative with this whole regime. I mean, because obviously for all the accolades they got last year, the injury situation didn't really get any better. I mean, they had a lot of their rookie class. They had a lot of guys miss time. So like you said, for their sake, I'll knock on wood that haven't had a ton of that so far in camp. And, I think it kind of goes back to one of the first things we were talking about, where it's a lighter practice with Daboll. So it's kind of like, well, you have to get ready to play football, but you don't want to get hurt in that process. Right. And that's such a fine line and such a balancing act. And he definitely errs on the side of, like, let's kind of ease in, take it easy, whereas like Joe Judge is like, let's callous them and work them super hard, and then they'll be ready for the fourth quarter. And obviously, different methods can have different results, and for this one, obviously so far it's worked out with this camp, but a long way to go
for sure.
Coffee.
You don't drink coffee.
I will not be a very good supporter of this ad read for your sake.
No, but this episode, this interview, it's brought to you by Chris's Coffee because they want you to try it. That's the main point. They're a family-run, New York-based coffee roaster, and you're a family man. You're a big family man. And the leading importer of Italian-made espresso machines and service provider. My own mother, loves Chris's Coffee. Takes it with cream and sugar.
I drink it black, and I think drinking black coffee is the way to tell if it's good coffee, and it's good coffee.
The coffee is from bean to brew, meaning that they import their own beans in-house, roast it, pack it, and ship it right to you. Family-owned and bean to brew? That sounds awesome. Roasting capacity at their brand new 64,000 square foot facility is now upwards of 2,300 pounds of coffee per hour. That's a lot of coffee. And beginning today, right now, you can use code JOHNBOY at checkout to receive a free 1-pound bag of our brand new Giant Java coffee, not the computer, with any order over $50 plus free shipping. Discount can't be combined with any other offers. If you're in the market for an espresso machine, grinder, or just a great tasting coffee, talk to the espresso coffee experts at Fly in My Face at www.chriscoffee.com. They've assembled a passionate world-class sales team eager to help you guide you on your espresso jersey. www.chriscoffee.com. You'll be glad you did. Use promo code JOHNBOY.
An ad read during the interview. Would you tell Chris's Coffee you have me on? And they were like, we'll pay any amount to get during that segment.
They're sponsoring the Dan Duggan interview.
Usually our ads go for like $20,000 an episode. Yeah. This one was a little more.
Fly was in my face.
Was there any? I know you wrote an article with the Lions athletic reporter about bubble guys. I was watching like the corner number 20. I can't remember his name now. Yeah. Was there anyone that stood out for you, or was it kind of hard to see what those guys were doing?
It is hard because obviously you're watching, the Giants guys first and foremost. There was a corner. I'm trying to look at my roster right now as I buy time. His name was like Starling.
It was either 27 or 49 who I was watching. If it was 27, it was the guy I was watching.
49, Starling Thomas. I don't know what his stats with the team. He's a rookie. But the Giants' cornerback depth is a spot where you could definitely see, a post-cut day addition. I wouldn't be surprised at all. He stuck out to me a little bit. But yeah, and obviously you're watching mostly the ones. You're focusing on that. Like I would say, like Cam Sutton looks really good. Not that they're gonna.
I had a Cam Sutton comment on the stream yesterday, and a Lions fan was like, "Yeah, he's our number one corner." Like,
so probably not gonna hit the waiver wire. But no, because I did that article and picked the brain of Colton Pouncey, our Lions writer, and I tried to say, if they're going to cut like a wide receiver, it's probably not Giants are probably going to be in the market for one, but the positions that the Giants need, they don't have he didn't identify a ton of quality depth. He actually said Julian Okwara, Romeo's brother, could be on the chopping block as an edge rusher. I think some way, shape, or form, they're going to have to bring somebody in there, but as more time goes by, it doesn't seem to me a veteran because those guys are kind of going off the shelf. But no, there was nobody who jumped out. Honestly, that might be more the game for at least us. I'm sure the personnel staff for the Giants is watching those guys. But yeah, I'm more focused on the ones and the Giants. But on the game, maybe someone will pop and you realize, that guy was actually good in practice. And then in 3 weeks when he gets cut, you wouldn't be surprised if he ends up here.
Speaking of brothers on the Lions, did you realize Stephen Gilmore's little brother is on the Lions?
Stephon Gilmore.
Or Stephen, but it's spelled like Stephen with a PH. His brother's name is Stephen with a V.
I did not know.
There's no way the parents named that. There's no way they did
The next one's going to be like either like Stefan or Stefan,
just
Steven.
all spelled the same. I know you weren't necessarily watching the defense, but this was just kind of a theme even coming in here. any concern with the lack of pass rush or even kind of like looking at our edge depth? And I know A'Shawn Robinson's been out and I know Nacho's been out, but even like looking at the interior defensive line depth behind Dex and Leo, it gets me a little anxious. Where are you on all that?
Not so much the D-line depth because you figure, they did bring in Nacho and A'Shawn, and obviously they've been a little, slow to get out of the gates, whether it be, Nacho's had kind of a star-crossed camp with a car accident, and now he's got a groin injury, and then A'Shawn's come off the pup, so they're kind of slowly ramping him up. But I think you kind of know what both those guys can do, and it's an upgrade from what they had last year.
Correct, yeah.
The edge, it's kind of baffling to me that they just ran it back with the same group, even if you weren't going to, spend like just bring in somebody who's not O'Shane Zimenez, or that you just change the room up a little bit because I think what you had last year wasn't very good. So they brought Ward back. I get he's a big vibes guy and stuff, but I'm surprised they didn't even just a late round pick something there to just add a little life. That's why I keep thinking they're going to add somebody. And Justin Houston was a guy who made a ton of sense until you saw he got real money.
Yeah, those guys were always going to get money. I knew that.
The longer it went, though, you're thinking, okay, it's going to be like $3 million with a lot of incentives. He's got like, 6 or 7, like guaranteed. Like, and Ngakoue got even more than that. So it's like, if you're just waiting it out, it's like it's going to be a while probably because the market is still pretty good for those guys. So, I think that's a position that concerns you. Obviously, Ojulari, his history last year. If the top 2 guys stay healthy, you're in good shape. But can you just bank on that? I mean, obviously last year. It was lean at times. They survived it, but I don't think you want to live like that again.
Right.
Jihad Ward is all vibes, no pass rush. I think they wanted the draft one, but then they did all the trades, and because you saw O'Shane was signed like a few days after that.
Right.
I think that made they probably want to come away from the draft with like at least one new guy in depth. Weren't able to do that. Here's the most important question: what is your record prediction for the 2023 New York Giants?
What did I say? I think I said like 5 last year, and
I believe you did say 5 last year.
I remember you tweeting me in like week 6, like, oh, you're wrong. So
I think who got most offended by us tweeting the wrong was John Smilk because he's don't care.
Don't care.
And I was like L for John Smilk should have cared.
It's true. So I think listen, this is like kind of a like a hacky thing to say, I feel, because it's been said so much. I think they're a better team, but might not have a better record because I think the step up in competition, the schedule is obviously tougher. I think a lot of things went their way last year in terms of close games. That sort of tends to kind of regress to the mean. So I don't think I've put one in print. So I'll say 8 and 9, just because I'm a pessimist. I could easily go 9 and 8, but I'm a pessimist. So I'll say 8 and 9. And honestly, if you look around the NFC, I still think they'll be in the playoff race at that point. I mean, obviously, be in the race, but that could even get you in because there's just so many crappy teams in this conference. Obviously, you got 2 really good ones in their division. But I think that'll still, they'll be right there in the mix. But I do think the tougher schedule, better quarterbacks they're facing, all that. You look at that opening stretch, it could be tough. Like they come out of the gates. Aside from that Arizona game, find me like the easy win they have.
They cannot get out of. If they lose to Arizona, it's like full panic time.
No doubt. But I'm saying even if you count that, like, so where's the other win? Like the first 6 weeks. I mean, okay, Seattle at home, but like there's no gimmies beyond Arizona. Like it's gonna be a tough stretch just to open it up.
I think they're really like. Stealing one versus Dallas to start the season, I think, would be huge for them, where they kind of have an advantage of new additions. Definitely have the coaching advantage. Like that's a game where it's like my expectations for the season kind of swing on week 1.
Yeah.
What'd you think of us being media scum these past couple of days?
We were your colleagues for 2 days.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me turn around to you. What was it like for you guys to be on the other side of the velvet ropes and see how luxurious life is in the media workroom and whatnot?
So we popped in for the Dan Campbell press conference today, and I don't mean this by any disrespect, but you see a manly man in Dan Campbell, and it's just you see a bunch of nerdy people asking him questions. I'm like, this is just a very weird dynamic. Like that really threw me off this morning.
I mean, he's all man though. It's like at least with Daboll, you feel like a little more like equal in terms of physiques and stuff.
What was that story that Daboll told today? About how he like got out of a car?
Oh, no. I guess on the buses were on the way over. Like one of the team buses like blew a tire on the highway and stuff. So they had to like pull over and like load them
Everybody
that is my
left.
worst fear for this van on the way home. Like I'm not going to wreck it, but if a tire goes down, this thing is very easy to flip.
Everybody laughed like it was a lot more funnier than that.
Yeah, I mean when the coach pulls you over like that, you gotta do that.
You know what? And that's so. I may talk about this a little bit more whenever we record, but. We're very personality-driven people.
You're a very personality-driven person.
I'm a very personality-driven person. And I felt like you can't really show it when you're kind of over there, when you're back there, when we were in there, and it could just be it's our first couple days and we're uncomfortable, we don't really know what to do, where to go, but it just felt weird, because I'm like a hot dog eating guy, I'm a dancing
Well, my thing was
guy,
don't cuss in the tweets or anything like that. Also, there was a couple plays the first day where I was like, when DJ overthrew Waller, I gave it a damn it, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be reporting.
No cheering in the press box.
That's
violation number one. You'll get someone who would have an angry tweet about you, like, oh, the Giants fans on the sideline.
Yeah, I was like, damn it. And I was like, oh, maybe quiet down a little bit. It was fine. It was. I think in the Giants building it'd be a lot more awkward, but out here where it was the Detroit Lions, it's like, okay, you guys aren't accustomed to being here either. You got anything else, Justin?
No, it was great seeing you.
Great seeing you guys.
Go subscribe to The Athletic. Check out at @DDuggan21, I believe. Yep. So you guys been doing good work, and hopefully we're talking to you after another successful season.
Yeah, safe travels home.
Where your record prediction is wrong.
Maybe I'll hear from you week 9.
Yeah, at least you bought yourself some time so you don't get to out in the first 6 weeks of the season.
That's tough.
That Ravens win last year, because the Packers win, that's really nice, but you still this could fall apart. And then the Ravens win, I think, was the most really the only fluke of the season, because you had Lamar just throw the dumbest pass ever. And that Julian Love intercept was oh my God, they are going to be 5-1. This team that we all predicted to win 5 and 6 games is going 5-1. All right, Dan Duggan, we appreciate you for coming on.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you to Dan Duggan for coming on the show. Always excited to talk with Dan Duggan. We were a colleague of his for 2 days, and now he's back to being media scum, and we're back to normal people. Bobby Skinner, I want you to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. New customers, you can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code WORLD. Bet just $5 to score $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code WORLD only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800.
Can I do the disclaimer?
Yes.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8 HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, and West Virginia, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. All games regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly. In partnership with Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 887-897777 or visit ccpg.org. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. 1 boost per eligible game. Often required. Max bets $50. 10 plus leg room for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/baseball terms. You'll be glad you did. All right.
Brian Blaney won the race.
5 guys to watch for Giants preseason game 1. That's something we do every year for the first preseason game. We're not going to go into detail on it. Just kind of give your guys a list. Number 1 for me, Javarius Owens. 1, because I'm a Javarius Owens stan. But because of the Giants' safety room right now, don't look at my fucking list. Because of this Giants' safety room right now, he hasn't gotten much opportunities, but every time on the third team, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to watch Javarius Owens. That's the guy I'm most interested in here. And they just never gets tested. He had some good plays in the run versus alliance, so Javarius Owens is my number 1 guy to watch, Justin.
Javarius Owens was my number 2 guy to watch, so I agree with you. My number 1 guy to watch is Deontay Johnson, UDFA out of Toledo, I believe. He's been running with the threes. He's an interior linebacker. The Giants don't have any interior linebacker depth outside of Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, and Darian Beavers. And Darian Beavers hasn't looked fantastic. I think the Giants like him. He's going to be here. He's not going anywhere. And I have hopes for Darian Beavers, but this is his rookie year. I want Deontay Johnson's going to get a lot of playing time because Carter Coughlin and Cam Brown, they're special teamers. Yeah, they'll play linebacker and interior linebacker in the preseason because they have to, but Deontay Johnson is probably going to be out there for 3 quarters.
Yeah. Darian Beavers, who you mentioned, is number 5 on my list.
Okay.
Because he hasn't looked great coming back from the injury, and I think McFadden is going to win that job. But Beavers is still going to be called on to play this year, most likely, and I want to see him in game action because coming off an injury, game is just going to make a lot. It's going to look a lot different than practice, and it's you brought up a linebacker. I think linebacker is one of the hardest things to watch in practice, so I want to see it in a game. Darren Beavers is my number 5. So Javarius Owens is your number 2.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Cordell Flott.
Yeah.
He's been running only with the 2s. And this isn't like if Cordell Flott has a good preseason game, I'm not going to hype it up. But my thing to watch for Cordell Flott is do not have a bad game.
Oh.
If you have a bad game, man, and I'm just like, man, I don't have much hope for you. Yep. And wide receivers, and I can see that being a possibility, especially with some of the depth the Lions have at wide receiver. So Cordell Flott's my number 2, and it's not to go out there and be a star. Hopefully he does, or to come away from man, he's ready. It's don't go out there and look bad. Because if you look bad, man, you are not going to win this nickel corner job.
My number 3 is Rodarius Williams. He had a pretty decent practice Thursday against the Lions. Almost had an interception. And on that same play where he almost had an interception, he kind of got stepped on a little bit.
He got a knee to his head.
Knee to his head, but then he came back in with his hand wrapped up, and he came back into practice, which I thought was impressive, showed a little grit. Shout out Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, showing some grit. So Rodarius Williams, while I think Amani Aurorier is a guy who's not hot in the Giant streets right now, but if Rodarius Williams can be better than Amani Aurorier and provide some depth with outside corners, with the outside corners, I'm taking that. So Rodarius Williams, I'm keeping an eye out for you.
Number 3 for me is Jalen Hyatt. Just because I want to watch that dude freaking run and make some big plays. It's simple. It's not. I'm not even looking for big takeaways. I just want to watch Jalen Hyatt play football, so he's my number 3.
My number 4, Jordan Riley. Jordan Riley had a really, really good practice on Thursday. There were some 3 defensive lineman sets that Wink Martindale was running where he was taking a slot corner off the field because the Lions were running the ball a decent amount. Ashawn Robinson is still out and kind of working his way back from his injury. Nacho has had a very interesting summer from being, in a car accident. Now he's going through something with his groin. So Jordan Riley has been getting more and more reps, even got in there with the first team a little bit, and he has also been out there with the second team. That's going to be another guy where I feel like Jordan Riley, because they want to see what they got in him, he's going to play a lot, and he's probably going to be gassed because he is a big dude who's going to be asked to play a lot during the preseason. How are you going to hold up? How are you going to perform? Can you get separation? Can you get some run stops and stuff like that? So I'm keeping an eye out for Jordan Riley. Look better than DJ Davidson than what he did last year.
Number 4 for me is Josh Azudu. Now he may not play, but today, the last 2 days, he hasn't started as a starter. He's rotated in. I just want to see his technique, man. I want to see your hand usage. I want to see your feet, move fluidly. I don't want you to see you getting embarrassed. You shouldn't going up against the Lions, backup defensive tackle. So I want to see really good technique out of Josh Azudu. Yeah. So do you have anybody else on your list?
I do. Number 5, Eric Gray, a guy that we were really excited about drafting him out of Oklahoma. Arguably the day 3 pick because he's a running back and because that's a position that you can find success early. It's sometimes the draft stock and where you're drafted sometimes does not matter for running backs kind of coming in here and having some sort of success in the NFL. So if you're running out there with the 2s or maybe he's even getting some first team reps on Friday, I'm looking for Eric Gray to have an impact because let's do it because I want to be excited about Eric Gray.
All right, so my 5 guys from 1 to 5 was Javarius Owens, Cordell Flott, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Azudu, and Darren Beavers.
Mine was Deontay Johnson, Javarius Owens, Rodarius Williams, Jordan Riley, and Eric Gray.
Very nice. All right, that's an episode.
I feel bad that we had some behind the scenes interactions with some players and coach this week, and we didn't talk about it.
Well, the one biggest interaction made me really mad, and we can't talk about it. So
not that. I'm talking about with Daboll. We had 2 interactions.
Daboll is a nice little shit talker. I like Daboll. I mean, he's always been the guy you go get a beer with at a bar.
Yeah.
But he started. It was me, you, Art,
Connor Hughes. I think
Connor Hughes
was next to us
before practice, and I didn't even know what he was saying at first. He's like, you want the script? I'm like, hell yeah. And he's like, all right, spit it back to me. And he's like,
yeah. I thought he was going to give us
he's
something.
Like, trips wide, F split. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. Don't do this to me. And then no one else got it right. So I felt a little better.
And I kind of wanted to like punch right back, and I'm like, all right, well, here's the DraftKings ad read. Read the disclaimer in 60 seconds.
Yeah. It's not so easy.
Not so easy,
job.
Coach.
What's easier, reading a DraftKings ad or reciting a play? But I definitely felt like Chris Sims. You know that video of Chris Sims with John Gruden.
Well, John Gruden's insane with that stuff. Yeah, but it was
the
cool.
same thing. It was just Gruden gets more mad.
Yeah.
Gruden got a lot more mad at Chris Sims than Brian Daboll did at
Daboll
us.
just wanted to show his football inferiority.
And I did I was like, just let's do a wave concept. He's like, yeah, that's what we called it at Alabama.
We don't call it that here.
Yeah, which is like very okay.
Okay, well, what do you call it?
Yeah, well, they call it all the routes. The
what do you
formation.
call it? So it was cool. Brian Daboll.
It was cool. So obviously, now I don't really feel comfortable being media for these, but
Correct.
I felt a little more comfortable because we were in Detroit Lions facility, so it wasn't like
Everybody else
we were
was
on
kinda
everyone else's turf.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool to meet some people and shake some hands.
Yeah. Daboll didn't look at me like I had 5 heads when I met him. It's like, oh, maybe you know what we're about.
Yeah,
He knows about the van.
Yeah, he does. He does know about the van, so that's cool. And we talked with some of the players and stuff, so it was cool. So hopefully we get opportunities to do this again, and I think we will because we did the numbers and we didn't run on the field and then we didn't ask players for autographs.
No.
So maybe we can do another joint practice again. So anything else, Justin?
Excited for Giants football because it's back on Friday.
Dude, we got a preseason game. Come watch the live stream with us. It's going to be a just me and Justin live stream for a preseason game. We haven't just had a me and Justin live stream like with watching something in a long time.
I'm going to try and find somebody.
So look, it's going to be fun. So we appreciate you guys. We're driving the van back while you're listening to this. We will see you when we see you. Until then, let's go Big Blue.